this is Toolbox. This is a sequencer for your Eurorack synthesizer. It's a touchscreen interface. So you've got 4 gate sequencers. You can change the step length or the step count, so you can have a 32 step pattern or less, and then change how the duration of the step. We can also then we've also got these 4 piano roll styles sequencers, so you can just use kind of standard touchscreen interface gestures to sequence, and these all send out MIDI as well. So you can go to here and select a MIDI channel or a MIDI port, and then it will come out of these MIDI outputs. So you've got 4 MIDI outputs, but you can also channelize them. So yeah, we've got 4 gate sequencers, 4 kind of pitch sequencers. We've then got 3 LFOs, which can be various different waveforms. You can change the rate, you can change the depth. They can also be beat synced to the internal MIDI clock or the external clock coming in here. So we've then got a modulation style sequencer as well. So as well as these sequencers and LFOs and the modulation sequencer, we've also got these external inputs, and you can use these to modulate various different parameters within the toolbox. So we can go here, we can select an external one, and then we can give it an amount. So if we had a CV source coming in, we could modulate one of these parameters, which is the step length or the step count. We can also modulate the transpose as well. So just a way of kind of integrating the rest of your Eurorack within these kind of standard style piano roll sequencers. So this is BitBox. It's a 16-point sampler, 24-bit. So super simple. You can either load your samples onto an SD card and then just hit load, and then you can scroll through whatever's stored on the sampler. It's on the SD card. So we can also really simply just create a new sample with audio coming into the external audio inputs here. So we can just basically, you just hit info, and then it would display the level of whatever is coming in, and then you just hit record, and you can quantize the recording as well based on the MIDI input here. So if we connect this up to Toolbox would output a MIDI clock, and then we could quantize the recording based on the incoming MIDI clock. So that's there's various different ways of working with the samples, and we'll have a look at that shortly. We've also got these external inputs which we can use to modulate various different parameters within each sample that you're working with. So basically there's kind of 3 different ways that you can work with samples within BitBox. So you can do one hits or samples that can loop, and then you can do clips, which could be kind of, it's more like an Ableton style kind of clip launcher. And then you can do slicers, which is great for chopping up breaks and kind of resequencing them on the fly. So we'll start with these one hits. So you can hear I've got a kick and a snare. I've also got a bass drop. So next we've also got this top one, which is actually a slicer which has been cut up using the scan function here, and then resequenced with this sequencer down here. So we've got like a phrase sequencer or like a modulation sequencer which we're using to resequence this break. That's kind of a little bit of a weird one, but we've also got another break going on. So if I just start playing, so that's this break down here. As you can see, again, I'll just reload that one in so you can see how easy it is to cut up breaks. So you just literally just scan it, and then because I'm using this this pitch sequencer here, I can resequence the break on quite quickly. And all I need to do is just then go in here and select slice, and then select external 4, which is this output from this 4th sequencer on here. So that's quite a nice way of working with the samples. So all together. Next we've got this pad, which is again, this is a sampled pad, and we set up a loop point so that we can play back a pitch over here. And it's also got a release setting, so it's quite long. It's bi-directional, so that once it goes into the looping point, it will cycle back and forth until the release is ended. So you can see that there. So the last way that we're working with the sample within the BitBox at the moment is we've got a clip. So this is the Ableton kind of style way of working with samples. So if I hit that one, it doesn't start until the beginning of the bar. So if I hit it again, both the pad and the vocal are going out of this effects one and being filtered by an external Eurorack filter, and that's just because I wanted I wanted to take some of the low end out of the pad, just to make a bit more space for everything else that's going on in the mix. We've also taken this LFO output here, and that's going to control the cutoff of the filter on the pad and the vocal. So So let's just have a look at quantized live recording with the BitBox. So I've got a little kind of drum beat programmed on the Toolbox that's playing back samples from the BitBox, so just hear that. And then I've also programmed a bass line on the Toolbox, which is playing the Akemi's Taiko from ALM, which is one of my favourite modules. In order to hear what's coming into the input here, go to an empty slot, hit info, and then you can monitor what's coming in. And because I've got recording quantized to 1 bar and the length of the recording to 4 bars, what it's going to do is start recording on the first beat of the bar, record for 4 bars and then stop, and then just keep looping the sample that I've just recorded in. So I'll show you that. So now it's started. So now it's just looping back that sample that we created, and you can see that. You can see the sample that we created there. And again, it's in clip mode. So what we can do now is say adjust the bassline, and we'll switch the pan, and then we'll record that into another slot. So I'll just stop that one. can see, it's just quite easy to kind of build up these kind of clip launching kind of way of working. So I guess now I need to give you some of my opinion of both the BitBox and the Toolbox. Let's start with the BitBox, because I did really kind of quite like the way that you can handle samples within that in multiple different ways. I think, you know, having the looping points and being able to create kind of pads and things from samples is really quite easy and quite nice. And also I found the slicer mode excellent. Just works really simply, and also very fun as well, and quick to work with, just you know, selecting your slice and selecting what the input is. So if you've got multiple kind of weird slices and multiple sources coming in to chop around the slice, you can get some really quite weird stuff from cutting up a sample and then sampling through the different slices. Toolbox, on the other hand, I didn't like quite as much as the BitBox. And I think that's mainly due to the piano roll editor. Kind of when you first look at it, it seems like a great thing because it's very easy to create sequences that you're used to and kind of working in an interface that you're used to when you're working on a computer. However, I found that this kind of small touchscreen interface isn't. I kind of wanted a pen or something to kind of knock in the notes, because I found with my fingers, I found I was getting, you know, if you're trying to, even though you can zoom in, I found that it just wasn't very intuitive to sequence a pattern on that. And also, it's only 32 steps, which I think is a bit of an oversight, really. I did, however, like the gate sequences because they're very simple and very easy to program. Would be nice if you could, say, for instance, select a gate that you've put in and then change like some probability or something like that. That would then extend the 32-step pattern greatly, and you could create a 32-step pattern that could go on for much longer. So it would be nice as well on things like the LFO if you could modulate the rate via an external CV input. But yeah, overall I think they're both great. They're around the sort of £500 mark, so they are quite pricey, but that's kind of the same sort of price as say like a Morphogene or something like that. But again, I think the BitBox, the way that it handles samples it's something that you're used to. If you've ever worked with like Reason or an MPC or something, it's very quick and intuitive to work with the samples in that way. So yeah, I think the BitBox is kind of a nice merging of kind of things from the computer, and then also having the CV integration is very handy as well. So yeah, I think overall these two do make, you know, you can get a lot of sound from just one sequencer or one 4-track sequencer and then a decent sampler. And that's also kind of a wider question in Eurorack at the moment, I think anyway, that sampling is opening up the ability of a Eurorack synthesizer to create a lot more sound in a small space, and ultimately I think that's a good thing. So yeah, thanks for watching.